Good morning. Hopefully we're live. It says that we are, but who knows with the software nowadays. Hope that you're well. I'm very thankful that you're with me. And today I wanted to share with you a policy paper that I discovered on the internet that came out all the way back in 2020. So we'll read this today, February 1st, 2023, and hopefully we can glean some information of what's going on. So it's called Reset the Table, and it came out from the Rockerfeller Foundation. So first up, we're going to start with this picture, which puts a timestamp on itself. And I firmly believe in 20 years that we'll look upon this time with shame and how we treated each other. And how 1.6 billion disposable masks entered the ocean in 2020 and will take 450 years to biodegrade. And that was all the way back in 2020. So God knows how many more masks are in the ocean now. But I digress. Food. Reset the table. Meeting the moment to transform the U.S. food system. Again, this was July of 2020, so 2.5 years ago. And I just discovered this paper, so we'll see. We'll see what warnings it has to offer. Forward. America faces a hunger and nutrition crisis unlike any this country has seen in generations. Today, 14 million children are missing meals on a regular basis, a stat that's 3 times worse than the Great Recession and 5 times worse than before the COVID-19 pandemic. As parents, who often skip meals themselves in order to prioritize feeding their kids, can no longer protect their children from hunger. It's even worse for Latino and Black families, who have seen rates of nutrition insecurity spike to 25% and 30%, respectively. In the wealthiest country in the world, this is simply unconscionable. In many ways, COVID-19 has boiled over long-simmering problems plaguing Americans' food system. What began as a public health crisis fueled an economic crisis, leaving 33% of families unable to afford the amount or quality of food they want. School closures put 30 million students at risk of losing the meals they need to learn and thrive. School nutrition professionals like Michael Gasper in Holman, Wisconsin, had to act quickly to keep providing children with the meals they need. As he told Food Corp, Friday, March 13th was the last day before schools closed. Our team had conversations late on Friday, then again over the weekend, and we started implementing the plan on Monday. We've just kept working and changing as we go. By late April, his team was serving more than 10,000 meals a week to students in the district, including breakfast and lunch via curbside pickup. Now schools, like his, are facing major financial and operational challenges as they approach an unprecedented school year in which even more students will need school meals. Against this backdrop of both challenge and heroism, the Rockefeller Foundation sought out diverse perspectives on what this pandemic has revealed about the U.S. food system and how we can collectively meet this moment. This spring and summer, we brought together more than 100 leaders and experts, a bipartisan group, including senior officials who previously served in Republican and Democratic presidential administrations, from the fields of health, agriculture, nutrition, education, private industry, environment, national security, civil rights, and social justice. This paper draws directly on those rich discussions to lay out a framework for change toward an equitable, nourishing, and sustainable U.S. food system. The imperative to change the U.S. food system is not new. Many individuals and organizations have been working to address it for years, if not decades. What is new is the urgency and opportunity in this moment to make transformative progress. Transformative. Man, that trans word is everywhere. Transhuman, transgender, transformative. We offer some immediate actions here, but this is far from a comprehensive playbook. which may address many other important issues that deeply affect food and nutrition, such as living wages, housing, and transportation. All of us need to write that playbook together over the coming year. We are thankful to the many individuals and organizations working on those issues through local and national political activism, legislative advocacy, and community-level efforts. Even as we address today's most urgent crisis of child hunger together, we cannot settle for more of the same. We have to meet this moment in a way that moves our country forward, toward a future where access to healthy food is a right for all. Our food system touches everyone and everything, and no one should be satisfied with the status quo. Whether you care most about child hunger or workforce protections, family farmers or fair wages, market efficiencies or racial equality, climate change or national security, all of us should be fighting for a food system that's sustainable, nourishing, equitable, and just. We can do this, though America's needs are great. So is our ability to meet them. With urgency, action, and partnership, we can channel our energy to respond and transform the U.S. food system together. So, I wanted to go really quick. Who defines what sustainable, nourishing, equitable, and just is? Who? Tell me. President of the Rockerfeller Foundation? Maybe? What COVID-19 has revealed. The images of the past few months have been both shocking and heartbreaking. Families out of work and newly struggling with nutrition insecurity, waiting in long lines, in long car lines for a day's or a week's worth of food. School nutrition professionals wearing whatever protective equipment they or their schools could provide, putting their own health at risk to meet the rising demand for food or in their communities. Meat and poultry plant workers suffering disproportionate rates of COVID-19 infections while facing mandatory return to work orders, and farmers, with none of their usual buyers in a position to purchase, out of economic necessity, dumping millions of gallons of milk, onions, beans, eggs, and more. Out of economic necessity. It was a disgrace. All of that was a disgrace. This supply chain issues because of the lockdowns. It's not because of COVID. It's because of our response to COVID. These images tell a powerful story of the economic and public health consequences of poor nutrition. With 94% of deaths from COVID-19 among individuals with an underlying condition, the majority of which are diet-related. And all of the references are down below. That top one is a CDC reference, so you can check out in the end notes. Lots of information here. And this is very long, so hopefully it doesn't take too long. Depends on how many rants I go on. They tell an equally powerful story of a food system struggling to respond to the disruptions wrought by COVID-19 response. Doesn't say response, but that's what it should say, if they were being honest. Americans spent more in restaurants than on groceries in 2018, and the sudden closure of dining out options was accompanied by a huge spike in demand at grocers. Food distributors set up to pack, haul, and deliver 50-pound sacks of flour and cheese to commercial customers couldn't quickly pivot to package 2-pound sacks of flour and 8-ounce packages of cheese for purchase by private customers in grocery stores. Tons of food intended for restaurants and food service were destroyed, while grocery store shelves emptied from a frenzy of panic buying by those in a position to afford it. 40% of Americans are unable to access $400 even in times of emergency. And again, this was back in 2020. Things have progressively gotten worse, not better. Many people could not afford such buying sprees, of course. With 37 million, excuse me. Sorry. With 37 million Americans already food insecure and tens of millions of Americans furloughed or fired, the effects of COVID-19 in terms of health and unemployment were disproportionately experienced by Black, Indigenous, and people of color. For example, among those aged 45 to 54, Black and Hispanic death rates are at least 6 times higher than for whites. With 40% of Americans unable to access $400 even in times of emergency, there was an explosion in nutrition insecurity in states and neighborhoods across the country. Grace, a food bank in Summit, New Jersey, was soon feeding 515 families compared to 100 a month earlier. Demand at Feeding South Florida, the largest food bank in the agriculturally rich state, soared 600%. Arizona is projected to have a nutrition insecurity rate of 26.2%, Navajo County. Every measure of child hunger rose to levels not seen in decades. In April, the U.S. Census found that a third of households that children couldn't afford to buy the amount or quality of food they wanted, a number that continues to hover around 28%. In 16.5% of households with children, parents are directly reporting that their children are not getting enough food, meaning that nearly 14 million children are going hungry on a regular basis. Black and Hispanic households with children are nearly twice as likely to be struggling with food as similar white families, and roughly 3 times as likely to report that their children are not eating enough. These shocking rates of hunger and nutrition insecurity have direct and indirect health-related costs estimated for 2014 to be $160 billion a year. I will get my shit together one of these days. A system stretched beyond its limits, the food system in this county is in many ways a marvel. Designed to address widespread malnutrition in the wake of Great Depression, it met the needs of a desperate nation. Over decades, the system expanded and innovated in ways that made it possible to produce, transport, and distribute food to reach across America. An incredible variety of food is available year-round, and the system is generally safe from foodborne infection, especially considering its vastness and complexity. And on a side note, it is a miracle when the system was working. People don't realize, they will soon realize, how much of a miracle it is that everything works, that groceries like avocados and bananas are at your grocery store daily. The whole system was a damn miracle here in America, and we just took it for granted. And it's unfortunate, but maybe that's why you reap what you sow. I'll just say that. You reap what you sow, and we don't sow much here in America. So, as far as food goes, we reap a lot of other things. We sow a lot of other things, and I'm sorry, I'm getting all messed up. Here we go. And yet, the food system's evolution also has consequences. The Green Revolution, which the Rockerfeller Foundation played a role in seeding and scaling, it just admits it, was effective and successful in addressing calorie-based hunger and averting mass starvation. But it left a legacy that we see clearly today, including overemphasis of staple grains at the expense of more nutrient-rich foods, reliance on chemical fertilizers that deplete the soil and overuse the water. The U.S. food system's very specific kind of efficiency has also brought rigidity and costly impacts on human environmental health alongside high levels of wasted food. Disparities in access to healthy food and lack of affordability of nutritious food compared to less healthy alternatives were outcomes of where agricultural subsidies and supports were targeted and where research and development dollars were spent. Poor nutrition, driven by many factors, including lack of access to healthy food, insufficient incomes to afford high-quality diets, and targeted marketing of unhealthy food, is now the leading cause of poor health in the United States. Poor nutrition causes more than 500,000 deaths each year, with disproportionate impact on indigenous people, people of color, and low-income people in both urban and rural communities. So yeah, poor white people too. I know they don't want to say it. They just want to, and it's terrible for all poor people. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It sucks to starve, whether you're white, black, or indigenous, or anything else. Even our nation's security and economic well-being have been compromised by poor nutrition and its related consequences. 71% of today's young adults, ages 17 to 24, cannot qualify for military service, with overweight and obesity being the main drivers of disqualification. The Department of Defense spends $103 million per year on lost work days associated with active duty personnel who are overweight or obese. Diet-related diseases are a leading factor in increased health spending, which has risen from 5% to 28% of the federal budget. So, yeah, it's a byproduct of excess. Just like if you watch any music video nowadays, the new Sam, I don't even know his last name, doesn't matter. There's a new video out every day that shows how much excess America has in some parts of the country, some Americans. Obviously, there are a lot of Americans that are suffering from all of the policies that came down from 2020 and beyond till now. But yeah, we're pathetic. And while farming is one of the most heavily subsidized sectors in the United States, farmers themselves are struggling. The median farm income in 2020 was estimated to be negative $1,840. Even before COVID-19, almost a third of all food produced in the United States was wasted. And food production, processing, and transportation has become one of the primary causes of the environmental fragility facing our planet, responsible for widespread deforestation, loss of biodiversity, water pollution, and between 13% and 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change threatens to further compound nutrition insecurity, intensify food loss and waste, deepen insecurities in food distribution, and worsen impacts on farmers and food chain workers. %63% of Hispanic workers and 54% of Black workers reported earning low wages even before COVID-19 struck. But long before COVID-19, farm and meatpacking laborers had among the highest worker injury rates and were among the most poorly paid of any occupation, with 50% of employees undocumented and unprotected. As the pandemic struck, they were classified as essential and summoned back to work, even as the virus hit their ranks particularly hard. Grocery clerks and stockers have similarly been on the front lines of COVID-19, where many workers in direct contact with potentially infectious customers without the necessary personal protective equipment. An opportunity. Here we go, opportunity. Over the years, numerous attempts have been made, some successful, others not, to leverage the strengths and productive innovations in the food system and to address those aspects of the system that negatively impact the health of people and their communities as well as the health of our planet. Before the pandemic, healthcare was experimenting with how to offer nutrition services for its patients. Medicare Advantage plans may cover the cost of food-related needs like healthy meal delivery service and grocery shopping for certain patients. There are hundreds of private businesses, non-governmental organizations, and local governments supporting innovation in the way food is provided at local levels. Some have joined with the school districts to create dynamic and nutritious school meal programs, seeking to transform the diets of millions of children, while also leveraging their purchasing dollars to expand the market for ethical and sustainable food. Others have created regional food hubs and are supporting innovations to allow small farmers access to large markets and greater prosperity, and to deliver fresh, healthy products to underserved communities. Still others have organized food policy collaboratives and driven local and food policies to support more diverse farmers and workers, increase sustainable growing practices, purchase local and culturally appropriate food, and establish regional food networks that are more resilient and adaptable to economic and social shocks. Hold on. They want to deliver fresh, healthy products to underserved communities. That's good. Still others have organized food policy collaboratives and driven local and state food policies to support more diverse farmers. What does that mean first? More diverse farmers. Are you talking about the food being diverse, or are you talking about the farmers themselves being different skin colors? Because I don't see what the hell it matters. We want the best farmers. We want the best CEOs. We want the best, most qualified of whatever industry. Why does it matter what their skin color is? Just the best farmer. If that's what they're talking about. I mean, maybe. But, I mean, to me, the way it's worded, to support more diverse farmers and workers. Maybe they mean they want less illegal immigrants, because it just said up here that the workers were undocumented and unprotected. So are they saying they want more white farmers then? And workers? I'm not sure what they're saying here. Increase sustainable growing practices. Purchase local and culturally appropriate food. Culturally appropriate? And establish regional food networks. Okay. These and many other efforts have created a rich body of knowledge and models for what works. And just as necessity is the mother of invention, the pandemic has highlighted some of the promising solutions around the country and inspired new innovations that might not otherwise have seen the light of day. Some of those innovations have come at the federal level, with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, for example, providing additional flexibility to those, such as public schools, struggling at great risk to meet exploding nutrition insecurity in their communities. What does that mean? Maybe it'll tell me. But additional flexibility? Does that mean they lowered their standards so that we could get food to the schools while we're throwing food away en masse? Doesn't make sense. Fundamental change needed in the United States food system. Based upon dialogues. Sorry, let me grab a drink. Based upon dialogues with over 100 experts and practitioners, this paper integrates the insight, analysis, experience, and effort of a long array of organizations that have long been working to improve our food system. They've been long working to change it. So far, I don't see any improvements. And this is 2023. This is almost 3 years, 2.5 years later, and I don't see improvements. I see bugs. I see cricket farms and cricket buildings and laboratories creating fake food. I don't see any improvement. Drawing deeply on this knowledge, this paper puts forth a framework to build a food system that delivers healthy and affordable food, provides a decent standard of living and safe working conditions to laborers, ensures the viability of family farms and rural communities, and protects the environment and human health, while still delivering fair returns to a broader set of shareholders. The systems change described here will take all of us. Federal, state, and local governments have a key role to play, and so do civil society and faith-based organizations, social movements, healthcare, and education institutions. national security institutions, philanthropy, research institutions, and private industry. As reflected in the illustration above, the change needed in the U.S. food system requires 3 significant shifts from siloed food access programs to an integrated nutrition security system that treats access to healthy food as a right and embeds healthy food access as a core component of health and education. Define healthy food. Because what if they define healthy food as bugs, bug-based? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but you can look around and they're putting crickets in a lot of food. They just started putting it in pizza dough, for heaven's sake. Dependency on hyper-specialized, vertically integrated supply chains designed to serve global markets. We need to move from that to reinvigorated regional systems as part of a better balanced nationwide food chain that includes diverse, agile, and prosperous local and regional food chains alongside a robust national chain designed to serve all communities from rural to urban. A focus on maximizing shareholder returns, move from that, to a more equitable system focused on fair returns and benefits to all stakeholders, building more equitable prosperity throughout the supply chain. What define fair, define equitable? To realize these 3 interrelated shifts in transforming the U.S. food system, we need to strengthen and activate a set of cross-cutting capabilities that have not been adequately built into the system. Among the capabilities needed to accomplish these 3 shifts described above are: apply true cost accounting, the consideration of not only immediate and direct costs, but also extended and indirect costs in policy, legislative, and programmatic decision-making, and in public messaging. Extended and indirect cost? How are we going to calculate those considerations? Because it sounds to me like you're talking about future costs, and if you plug in stuff into a model, well, it'll give you results based on whatever a human being plugged in. So, consideration of not only immediate and direct costs, which can be actually looked at and analyzed because it's direct, it's happening now, and extended and indirect costs. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that. Well, ensure public purchasing generates more public good out of every public dollar spent on food, health, and nutrition. And again, don't get me wrong, like, a lot of this stuff sounds great, but it's how are we going to get there, and what's the plan to get there? That's where I disagree with the Rockerfeller Foundation. It's never in the problems, it's the solutions that I find disagreements with people in general. Because everybody wants prosperity for all and for people to be able to live and eat and live for the pursuit of happiness, you know? But how do you measure? How do you find solutions? Everybody has a different idea of the solutions, and I think that some solutions are very dangerous. This is number 3, invest in coordinated federal, state, and local capabilities and emergency response plans to increase the flexibility and resilience of the food system. Invest in coordinated federal, state, and local capabilities to increase the flexibility and resilience. Modernize data and technology platforms to provide the tools needed to operate the system more efficiently in normal operation and under stress. Modernize data and technology platforms. What does that mean? More surveillance? I'm sure that's their solution. That's not my solution. Unify actors across multiple sectors, health, education, environment, labor, nutrition, agriculture, into a collaborative, advocacy movement. Centralize the power. Now, it's good for them to talk, but they shouldn't be centralized. That's very dangerous. I'll say it time and time again, even if you had saints in those centralized positions of power, we're human beings and we die. And so who do you think is going to be the most interested in those positions of power? Psychopaths. To answer the question, psychopaths, more than likely. So it's best to decentralize, so that way psychopaths can't take over 1 to 12 positions and rule the whole damn world, or a whole country. Looking forward, food advocates, community organizations, and researchers are deeply familiar with many of the changes described in this paper. We recognize and celebrate their leadership in creating positive models to scale and building the evidence to support changes to policies and programs. In our dialogues, we heard that what is new is the opportunity of the moment and the recognition of the need for a unified effort across sectors to advance these 3 shifts together. While COVID-19 and the resulting economic downturn made the negative consequences of the food system worse and more obvious, the pandemic did not create them, and its end will not solve them. The pandemic has, however, increased both the imperative and the opportunity to address these systemic deficiencies once and for all. The risks to public health, the strength of our economy, equity, and social justice, and even our national security demand it. The pandemic has, however, increased both the imperative and the opportunity. I mean, the fact that all of these internationalists, I'm not going to call them globalists for reasons I'm not going to discuss now, but these internationalists keep calling this virus a fucking opportunity. It drives me nuts. Does it not say something to you? Please let me know what it says to you in the comments down below. The imperative to address the ways in which the system is inequitable is further heightened by one of the most far-reaching public discourses on racism and systemic oppression in our lifetimes. The urgency is also apparent in extreme weather events that place the costs of a changing climate in stark relief. And the opportunity is palpable, given the likelihood of the largest public and private investment to rebuild the country's economy since the Great Depression. The combined equity, economic, environmental, and public health imperatives for change offer hope for the kind of systemic reimagining that seemed impossible just a few short months ago. It's all so perfect, isn't it? Just like, not the CEO, but one of the executives over at Bayer saying gene therapy never would have been accepted before 2020, and now, unbeknownst to many of them, billions of people have now had gene therapy called mRNA. I digress. Success will require numerous changes to policies, practices, and norms. Transformation of the U.S. food system will only achieve its fullest potential if we advance all 3 shifts, recognizing their connection to one another. This paper is not a comprehensive list of every possible change that might be appropriate or even necessary to achieve the transformation we call for. Who the fuck are you? What we hope it does is advance the collaboration and vision we have witnessed this spring and summer and reflect the emerging consensus we heard about the critical shifts necessary to transform the food system. What we hope to do is advance the centralization we have witnessed this spring and summer. Over the next few months, we will continue to engage government leaders, technical experts, policymakers, companies, community and faith-based leaders, and advocates as they build out more detailed analysis of the specific public and private actions required to advance this vision Again, who the fuck are you to make this vision and require all these people to advance it? Maybe I don't like your vision, anointed one. We also recognize the need to engage the communities most impacted by the food system, mindful of the fact that change will only happen and be sustainable if they have a seat at the table and power in the process. We hope that seeking to transform the U.S. food system in the ways described here will be inspired to identify and advance other changes and innovations in both policy and practice that help to promote a food system that is more equitable, healthy, sustainable, and resilient. These key words here that they have to keep throwing at us. Hey, we want equitable, healthy, sustainable. In case you didn't know, equitable means equal outcome. It means we're all wearing gray in a commie society. In case you didn't know, that's what fucking equitable means. Shift 1. Create an integrated nutrition security system with real wages rising little in the past 20 years and food prices up 4.8% in just the past 12 months. The food purchasing power and tens of millions of families have been severely constricted. Yet families experiencing nutrition insecurity in the United States navigate a minefield of bureaucratic hurdles across a complex and seldom collaborative set of safety net public nutrition assistance programs. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, WIC, NSLP, and school breakfast programs, SBP, the food distribution program on Indian reservations, all of these freaking lettered government agencies that are in charge of food. No wonder we're so fucked. Alongside programs like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, disability, state unemployment benefits. While many families cannot get by with only one program, each program requires a different enrollment process, interactions with different agencies, and administrative requirements, and visits to different physical locations to access benefits. Let me guess. You want to centralize it all. Have one giant welfare bank. Right? Because of these challenges to the public safety net, the most marginalized among us also rely on charitable food programs administered by food pantries, food banks, and other meal providers. Powered by philanthropic, there we go, I did say it, and corporate donations, dedicated volunteers, and surplus food that falls out of the mainstream supply chain. This system has heroically helped offset meal gaps for millions of people over decades. However, charities should not be the solution to chronic and widespread need. Healthy food should be a right for all Americans. Yeah, I think that food's really important, but should somebody else be forced to provide you food? Maybe you should grow your own food. Maybe everybody needs to have their own backyard garden and chickens. But of course they don't want that, because that's American self-reliance. They want you relying on the government, baby. Rely on that centralized power. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic fallout have demonstrated just how critical the public safety net is, while simultaneously pushing many programs past their limits. SNAP, which collectively provides 9 times as many meals as those offered by charities. I'm sorry, by the way, if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. He is old and a little overweight. Leo, wake up. You're snoring. By integrating healthy food into the healthcare system, doctors could prescribe produce as easily as pharmaceuticals and reduce utilization of expensive health services that are often required because of nutrition insecurity. That's what we need. We need a doctor to prescribe us food. That's what we need. Practically, this elevation of nutrition requires reaching an agreed definition of a healthy diet, investing in nutrition research, and improving education of medical providers and the public of nutrition. The elevation of nutrition into care could include the coverage of healthy food by Medicaid and Medicare plans for those struggling with nutrition insecurity and an integration of nutrition security screening. Linking together our food system and our health system can save both lives and money and better protect against future pandemics. Linking our food and our health system. After these last couple of years, do you trust the health system? Do you trust the food system, for that matter? That's also a question, but really the healthcare system, how? I don't know how you could trust it. And another thing, I don't know exactly which program, food stamps, so that's SNAP, right? They were lobbied hard by Coca-Cola and, well, soda companies in general to include soda in their healthy list. So what does that tell you about trusting these people with their nutrition list? Like, if pop is nutritious, then I'm a man. Schools are anchors of community nutrition. Public schools are anchors of community feeding and play an essential role in ensuring children are nutrition secure. Governments run the schools. And if you think the governments give a shit about your little kid, join the military. You'll see how much they care about any of their citizens. We must recognize school food service as an essential nutrition program, not as a side business expected to generate revenue, but increasing investment in these programs so that they can reach more children, provide school nutrition professionals with a livable wage, and support school food directors' innovative efforts to get healthier food on the menu and into kids' stomachs. Who can argue with that? Of course, I want children to have healthy food and to be food secure all over the world. I would love that. The problem is trusting these fools to be in charge of this. Be in charge of your kids' education and your kids' food. It's folly. You need to take back control over your kid. The state wants control. Don't let them have it. We should similarly invest in other frontline community institutions, including colleges, universities, and child care centers that provide meals to children and youth and influence their dietary preferences. Research has shown that children experiencing hunger do not perform as well in school. Of course, read any book about hunger. Read the book called Hunger by a Russian author. I don't know his name right now, I'm sorry. If you go hungry, you eventually go crazy. Food is directly tied to your mental health, of course. It's not just your gut biome and the bacteria. That is recently discovered and talked about widely. But yes, if you starve, you go crazy. So it makes sense. A recent paper also highlighted the role that school meals can play in improving health and outcomes. Excuse me. The study estimated that the nutrition standards implemented by the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act in 2012 had reduced obesity prevalence by 47% among children from low-income households by 2018, amounting to roughly 500,000 fewer cases of obesity. 36. Oh, see, that has to be looked into. Do not trust that. That statistic is probably manipulated. Like, they can say that because they take out a bunch of other stats or whatever. I mean, don't trust it. That's all I'm saying. Streamline public benefits and reimagine charitable food programs. Whenever possible, we should aim to have Americans in need participate in the mainstream food supply chain by increasing their purchasing power. This will support equitable access to healthy and culturally appropriate foods, robust markets for food producers, and economic growth. Every dollar in new SNAP benefits increased gross domestic product by about $1.50 during a weak economy. For families experiencing nutrition insecurity, it should be easier to enroll in safety net programs, reducing the burden on both administrators and families. This is especially critical considering the significant increase in families that now qualify for these benefits due to the economic downturn based on the COVID policies and restraints and lockdowns. Doesn't say that, just says economic downturn, but it's based on the policies that these tyrannical fucks put in place and completely decimated America's supply chains and economy. Learning from the experience of the pandemic electronic benefits transfer program, policies should consider responsive, automatic, and built-in advanced adjustments to safety net programs so that if one program suffers disruption, another can compensate. Technology and data should be used to streamline enrollment processes and share benefits information with eligible households. Technology can also help to expand retail options if online programs for SNAP and WIC are available and scale nationally to diverse retailers with bottlenecks like delivery fees addressed. Until we can realize this long-term vision, many families, seniors, and those who are medically fragile will continue to rely on the charitable food system to supplement safety net programs. That system must be reimagined to consider individuals and families struggling with food insecurity as their own demand stream that animates a pull system for fresh, culturally appropriate, and nutritious foods versus today's surplus-based push system. Oh, so we're going from a push to a pull. Transforming how healthy food reaches families, the last mile of supply chains, is critical to achieving healthy food for all and ensuring client dignity. Shift 2. Reinvigorate regional systems as a part of a better balanced, more sustainable, and more resilient nationwide food chain. Well, I'm not doing too bad. All right. The abundance of cheap and empty calories in the American diet has its roots in a series of long-ago campaigns designed to address malnutrition in the United States and abroad. The resulting consolidation of the food system enabled the production of large volumes of certain foods with tremendous economic efficiency. This centralized and highly specialized system, combined with long-distance transport, allowed for a year-round availability of an incredible variety of products. But it also squeezed out much of the redundancy, flexibility, and resilience needed to weather more extreme shocks to the system, while consolidating ownership, infrastructure, and supply into a highly vertical integrated system. This consolidation, combined with an emphasis on cutting costs and maximizing short-term profits, has in many places been associated with the erosion of rural economies, marginalization and disenfranchisement of independent farmers, exclusion of indigenous farmers and people of color, poor pay, and dangerous work conditions for food chain workers, and spikes in environmentally harmful growing practices such as large-scale monocropping and high chemical use. I am against high chemical use 100%, but we do rely on it for fertilizer and for food production to feed the world. So in order to shift, we need each individual to be self-reliant and be able to produce their own food so that they always have a backup in case the central system goes down. We need robust and diversified national, regional, and local food economies to assure that our nationwide food chain is both resilient and efficient, taking into account the true costs and benefits of infrastructure, policy, and economic decisions at these different scales. Whereas heavy reliance on few highly consolidated value chains leaves food supply vulnerable to shocks, a diverse mix of local, regional, national, and global sourcing provides the flexibility and redundancy needed to pivot and ensure that shocks do not create lasting disruption to food access or enduring harm to individuals throughout the food chain. In the wake of COVID-19, anecdotal examples from many parts of the country demonstrated that areas with regional hubs and other food centers were more nimble and faster to recover, based in part on strong relationship between producers, suppliers, and others. Moreover, researchers have shown that diverse, agile, equitable, and prosperous local and regional food chains are associated with job growth and increased prosperity for small and medium-sized farmers, and improve access to fresh foods in low-income urban areas. Harnessing the capacity of local and regional food systems, including their shorter supply chains, can reduce transportation costs and environmental impacts, and increase the flexibility and resilience of our food system overall, and its ability to respond to shocks like COVID-19. Such regionalization, when intentionally and properly structured, can facilitate strong and equitable relationships between producers, processors, buyers, and consumers. Similarly, local and regional food systems must be intentionally organized to encourage greater environmental sustainability to achieve that goal. To achieve this shift, we need to expand and ensure equitable participation in state-level food plans and in local food policy collaboratives, and across cross-sector bodies that have been proven to improve response to systemic shocks and stresses. We should invest in the grassroots organizations that are already leading the work to support thriving regional food systems across the United States. We need to allocate more public and private dollars toward regional and local food systems, starting with the examples that have been piloted and shown to work. These include incentives for schools, hospitals, and other institutions to purchase locally, and use of SNAP, WIC, and other benefits at farmers markets and other local channels, particularly when combined with incentives for purchasing healthy foods. We need to create financial products and grant programs that support agile manufacturing and adaptability and sustainability, as well as promoting small and mid-sized and BIPOC producers, distributors, and processors. The COVID-19 experience has shown the added agility and benefits from programs that connect farmers to consumers, such as modern farmers markets and direct farm-to-consumer online platforms. These should become more of a regular feature. Yeah, they want it more of a regular feature because they want to know. They want to know when you're buying directly from the farm. They want to know if your food's secure or if you're going to eat the bugs and listen to whatever they say. We also need to invest in hard infrastructure such as regional food hubs, cold chain mid-scale meat processing facilities, and other aggregation and distribution facilities. This requires the difficult balance of aligning food safety regulations to support diversity among producers, processing facilities, and distribution, including specifically small and medium-sized operations, without sacrificing the safety of the food supply. Right. How are you going to do that? How are you going to balance aligning food safety regulations to support diversity among producers? Why do the producers have to be diverse? Shift 3. Invest in equity and shared prosperity. During COVID-19, the country's roughly 2.5 million agricultural laborers were officially declared essential. Lucky them. I think everybody was essential. Everybody is essential right now. More than half of all farm workers, estimated at 1 million people, are undocumented immigrants of color, rendering them both essential and lacking in basic protections at the same time. Wages in the sector are so low that food system workers rely on SNAP at double the rate of the rest of the U.S. workforce, and yet undocumented workers are unable to access it. Well, there shouldn't be any undocumented workers then, should there? The current food system's vertical integration and policy subsidy infrastructure exerts tremendous influence on what gets grown by whom and at what cost. Farmers and laborers who hold the most risk receive the smallest portion of the profits. The overwhelming majority of American farmers operate at a loss, obligating 91% of all farm households to rely on multiple sources of income. Survival often hinges on access to public credit, loan, and subsidy programs, which have not been as accessible to BIPOC farmers. What is that? What do you mean? How? Legal settlements with Black and Indigenous farmers around the long-standing racism embedded in food subsidies and government food programs have only begun to undo this harm. I don't think that any bank would turn down a qualified African American, Indigenous, Asian, anybody that wanted to farm. A shared value approach. I just don't think that not everybody wants to farm. The country's food system should embody a shared value approach that delivers fair returns and a chance for improved prosperity to a broader range of stakeholders, including workers, customers, taxpayers, communities, shareholders, and the environment. Farmers should be compensated through models that more equitably share risk and profits. And have access to secondary markets connected directly to public nutrition recipients and distributors, like the Farm to School grant program. We need to adjust charitable and tax incentives to ensure that farmers can get healthy food into the nutrition security system and to charitable organizations without taking a loss themselves in the costs of crops, labor, and transportation. Well-planned reforms of the food system can also advance compensation models around reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and conservation of agricultural lands, minimizing the inequities that would otherwise be exacerbated by climate change. Transformation of the food system needs to engage the private sector, which must be part of the solution. We should consider policies to support business innovation and incentivize companies to advance nutrition security. How are you going to incentivize that? You're going to withhold money from some if they don't follow your rules and what you deem healthy? There's all kinds of dangers. More regulation, more power for certain people, and less power for others. We need to level the playing field by enforcing antitrust laws and strengthening pricing transparency measures that protect small and mid-sized producers from market distortion stemming from consolidation and monopolistic behavior. You know how monopolies are formed? They're formed with government assistance. Walmart can afford $15 an hour minimum wage. They'll just fire a few people. There'll be less job positions and unemployment goes up. But a local hardware store won't be able to afford that. They could afford $7 for someone to sweep up. You know what I mean? Like, monopolies are created by government regulations and legislation. Look into it. We need to ensure producers, processors, and distributors with an intentional BIPOC focus. Yeah, fuck you, Whitey. Can exercise the choice to stay on their land and keep their businesses, including transitioning from leasing to owning land. This likely requires grants and may also require additional debt, credit, working capital, and equity designed specifically with underrepresented populations in mind. Data on all publicly funded programs need to be transparent, real-time, and disaggregated to ensure accountability. We need to institute labor policy changes and oversight such as wage structures that reflect the value contributed by workers and enable these workers to afford nutritious food, dignified housing, purchasing power, and health protection. We need mandatory and enforced occupational safety standards for field processing and meatpacking workers. Holy shit, we need a lot more regulation, guys. We can't trust we can't trust anybody. We can't trust the farmers to work with the people that want to work on. We can't trust the workers that want to do business with the farmers. You can't trust them to make their own decisions. You have to have regulations because otherwise people are too stupid. Duh. Fucking duh. We need mandatory and enforced occupational safety standards for field processing and meat packing workers. And again, I'm for people being safe, but decentralized. It should be between me and, if I work in a farm, between me and the farmer. If I think the farmer's being an asshole, well, I can do something about it personally. I can quit. I can tell my friends, don't work there. But to have a big government entity, some centralized hand coming down and having its little dirty fingers in every interaction that individuals make with each other is not the answer. That is the problem. We need to institute labor policy changes and oversight, such as wage structures that reflect the value control. Oh, sorry. Go back down here. Right down here. Moreover, these essential workers should receive hazard pay and extra protections in times of emergencies, pandemics. We must also grapple with the uncomfortable reality that Americans rely on undocumented immigrants to produce essential food and find real solutions for farmers and workers. We also need to intentionally invest in community-driven rural and First Nation development, including water, broadband, local food integration into public nutrition programs, and accessible grocery options. We must reduce the fixed costs of participating in disparate and administratively burdensome public programs for small producers, processors, distributors, towns, and school districts. These shifts are achievable. Indeed, each one is happening right now at various scales and in different parts of the country. By working together, we can expand these successes across the country and system. Yeah, I believe you, Rockefeller. Ensuring affordability. Discussion of broadening prosperity inevitability. Discussion of broadening prosperity inevitably raises the question of who will pay for it and whether any of the strategies discussed here would increase prices, particularly for those already struggling to make ends meet. Of course they would. These are fair and important questions. Collectively, we are already paying for a system that drives health costs to the highest in the world, and that reduces the purchasing power of millions of working people, including those in the food system, through low wages. At a macro level, transformation of the food system should have a net positive economic impact. Let's just change all of it. Let's change everything, and it should be good. It's only your food we're talking about. Only something you need to survive we're talking about. For example, the percentage of household spending I hope my camera didn't look like that the entire time. If it did, I have no idea what to do. I'm sorry. The percentage of household spending on food has fallen to under 6% in recent years, down from approximately 14% in 1960, while healthcare spending, often correlated with poor nutrition, has risen to $11,000 per capita annually, the single largest household expense category. Individuals in the lowest income spend approximately 35% of their pre-tax incomes on healthcare. And of course, increasing the purchasing power of people and families, for example, through wage increases and equitable distribution of profits to farmers, would have an enormous and immediate effect on their ability to afford healthier food, thereby reducing the strain on nutrition security safety net programs. False. For one, wage increases. Government should not be involved in that. That should be between the employer and the employee. Equitable distribution of profits to farmers. Equal outcomes. That's what equitable means. So are you saying that a farm that sells $10,000 worth of food a year should make as much as a farm that sells $20,000 worth of food in a year? Because that's equitable. Do you think that's right? Because to me, if one farm makes $20,000 and the other one makes 10, well, then the one that's making 20,000 is putting in more work, is doing something more efficiently. There's some reason why they're producing more, and thus they should earn more, correct? That's how I see it. I'm for a merit-based system, not a top-down government, daddy, give it to me system. I don't like that system. I got fucked by the government for 5.5 years already. Don't want to any longer. Stay out of my business. Literally. My food business. The shifts articulated above will require focused, collective action over the long term. To realize them, the food system needs to strengthen and activate a set of cross-cutting capabilities that to date have not been fully realized system-wide. Among these are the following. Here we go. What do we want to do, says the globalists. Capability 1, relentlessly apply true cost accounting. True cost accounting considers not just immediate and direct costs, but also extended or indirect costs. Without true cost accounting, extended or indirect costs to human health, to the environment. How do you measure that? How do you measure the indirect costs to human health and to the environment? And I will say it almost every video, prove to me that carbon's bad. Prove it. Without true cost accounting, decisions made by public and private entities prioritize short-term direct costs while failing to consider the long-term and indirect costs that might have led to a different decision or justify a long-term investment. For example, some policymakers balk at the cost of SNAP, which is estimated at $1,500 per person annually. Yet this country currently spends $11,000 per person every year in healthcare. Since research demonstrates a direct link between nutrition investments like SNAP and reduced healthcare costs, true cost accounting might demonstrate that SNAP is a worthwhile long-term investment. Yeah. You want to get everybody on welfare state controlled by the government? SNAP is a worthwhile long-term investment. You want women married to the government? Invest in SNAP. Similarly, the hidden costs of environmental externalities of the current food system, such as climate impacts and adverse effects of agricultural water pollution, must be considered by public and private policymakers. For example, the economic costs of climate change alone are expected to climb to hundreds of billions of dollars per year, yet are rarely, if ever, considered in food system cost accounting. An integrated nutrition system seems to have, at its foundation, a clear economic rationale demonstrating what each nutrition program and food purchase dollar saves in near and long-term healthcare costs. Consideration should also be given to economic value as well as accounting for other environmental and social impact where appropriate. What does that mean? Who is to determine when it's appropriate? Like, there's just question after question. Who is to decide all these random, arbitrary categories? Let individuals make decisions based on what they need. How would a centralized power know what I need? You don't live my life. Consideration should also be given to economic value as well as accounting for other environmental and social impact where appropriate. Policymakers and the Congressional Budget Office should also incorporate true accounting costs when scoring legislation and considering subsidy programs and trade agreements. Why are they scoring anything? Why are they making the decisions on who gets subsidies and who gets the trade agreements? Private sector companies can incorporate true cost accounting practices as a better way to demonstrate to shareholders and stakeholders the company's sustainable business growth. French multinational food and beverage company Danone, for example, now reports a carbon-adjusted earnings per share. Oh, God. Help us. Capability 2. Activate the power of public purchasing. Every dollar spent on food purchase is an investment that shapes our food system and its public health, equity, environmental outcomes. Today, Too many public dollars are being spent to purchase cheap food with harmful impacts on all three of these outcomes, which true cost accounting would show also negatively impact our federal and state budgets. Major institutions in cities across the country, public universities, public schools, universities, hospitals, government agencies, early childhood education, senior care, and others all use public dollars to purchase and serve food, often in enormous quantities. The New York City school system alone is the second largest purchaser of food in the country after the military, and nationally the public school food system is an $18 billion market. It's crazy. As public institutions injecting our tax dollars into the food system, these institutions should bear a responsibility to purchase based on best value. That takes into account the true cost accounting approach, outlined above, and advances nutritional quality, ethical sourcing, fair wages, and benefits for workers. Yeah, I don't know why it looks so bad on the stream. I'm sorry that it looks so bad. I don't know how to fix that. I'm a noob. I'm a live streaming noob. All right. Capacity 3, invest in coordinated federal, state, and local capabilities in emergency response. More than 15 agencies at the federal level alone directly regulate and implement programs that impact food from farm to fork. To add to that complexity, many food access programs are implemented at the state and local levels. Similar to the realization that prompted the creation of the Department of Homeland Security and the Directorate of National Intelligence after 9/11, the COVID-19 crisis illustrated a clear need for a single executive office responsible for better coordination across government agencies and levels, as well as with community organizations that people know and trust. Well, there you go. They just told you. Just like 9/11, you got the Patriot Act, and you've been fucked in the ass since then. You have no rights, basically. Fourth Amendment right, gone. Bunch of other rights destroyed, decimated, and yeah, that's a great thing. Now, thanks to COVID-19, it's just so great that COVID-19 came along for these people. Illustrated a clear need for a single executive office responsible for better coordination across government agencies. I want that. Yes. One ring to rule them all. One ring to bind them. One particular area in need of greater federal coordination and investment is nutrition research, which could accelerate discoveries across critical areas and positively impact the economy, public health, and population resilience to future pandemics. In anticipating the next crisis that we will create, we must have plans and an improved emergency coordination and response infrastructure ready. This will require systems thinking, planning, value chain coordination, policy making, and implementation. We need clear and consistent messaging between government officials, businesses, community organizations, and the public. A first step is clear documentation and analysis of how governments and community organizations responded throughout this pandemic, so we can uncover key learnings as we begin to think about designing a more nimble, resilient infrastructure for future crises. We should design for maximum accessibility, flexibility, and expandability so the system can more readily adapt to changing circumstances ranging from economic downturns and pandemics to widespread droughts, fires, and natural disasters. Many existing programs like the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which allows for the purchasing of shelf-stable foods for nonprofit groups, have elaborate bid and contract processes that often take months to complete and are difficult for small and mid-scale producers to participate in. Departments at all levels should develop more streamlined processes to allow for contracting during a government-declared emergency. In addition, we need contingency plans for how to redirect healthy food from areas of surplus to areas of need, how to increase regional processing capacity to process excess produce for use during crises, how to redirect food system workers and food service infrastructure to support emergency programs, and how to best ensure personal protective gear is available when needed. Capability 4, modernize data and technology platforms. Here we go. This is the big one. This is the digital ID that they tried to implement with a vaccine, but they're going to try again. This time with a carbon footprint, because it's not about the pandemic anymore. It's about climate change. Climate change. Aren't you worried about climate change? We're all going to die in a couple years. Don't you know that? A 2015 study by McKinsey found that agriculture was the least digitalized sector in the United States. Oh, we need to figure out where that food's coming from, boy. We need to figure out where that food's coming from, because we need to stop it. The data landscape of the food system remains complex and highly fragmented, with large concentrations of data from large farms and consolidated private supply chain industries, but little transparency of where food or need exists up and down the chain. While technology has powered a new generation of grocery delivery and alternative proteins? Are you talking about that lab-grown meat that Bill Gates is growing? Is creating? It has failed to address straightforward gaps like the ability to widely use EBT cards securely online, process produce prescriptions at grocery retailers, or provide real-time visibility into foods needed in specific communities or surplus food available for donations. New and existing data and technology platforms could help to aggregate demand signals in the charitable food sector, enable dignified touch points with end users, and facilitate more efficient marketplace transactions between suppliers, intermediaries, and recipients. These are glimmers of progress that show the potential. For example, some food pantries use the Plentiful app, which is a free reservation system for food pantries and the people they serve, providing pantries with enhanced demand and impact analytics. The shifts outlined in this paper will all be made possible and strengthened by a comprehensive access to data in real time. There is untapped potential to combine data across the safety net systems to understand who is using which public program and when. Who is using what program and when? We just want to know everything. No big deal. We're not going to use it against you. We're the good guys. We care about you. An infusion of data analytic capabilities across the system would help to better forecast and meet need. State agencies should systematically leverage data they collect on households, such as income, to facilitate enrollment. Holy shit! Let me say that again. State agencies should systematically leverage data they collect on households, such as income, to facilitate enrollment. They want to know how much you make so then you can get the food that you need. If you make too much, but you're starving, you're not going to get as much food because these other people make less. By bringing, even though the people that make less grow their own food, and so maybe they don't need the food, there's just all kinds of things. By bringing together unemployment, household income, and other census and survey data, markets in the public nutrition system could have a real-time view into the likely volume of need in a community and where that need might go up and down. Finally, these advancements need to be accompanied by a critical investment in broadband access. 42 million Americans lack broadband access that is essential to shifts to online enrollment, online purchasing of food, direct farm to consumer purchasing, telemedicine, teleconsultations, as well as education, finance, and employment. This is a fundamental resiliency and equity gap, and we need to close it urgently. What if people don't want to be online, man? What if they want to live off-grid? Now, some people want to have internet and they can't, and that sucks, and we should address that. Because if you want internet, I think you should be able to get it all around the world. But capability 5, unify diverse actors into a movement. Diversity. Equity. No, diversity, inclusion, equity. Die. Across the experienced advocates that we engaged, from those focused on agricultural, to national security, to workers' rights, we heard that now is the time to realize the long-standing goal of building a more unified front to amplify clear and consistent messages and advance policy priorities to positively transform the food system. Lessons can be learned from the environmental community, which has aligned on a few key messages and channeled shared advocacy resources into a focused lobby. Just what we need. A focused lobby. In the same way, the agriculture, the food, health, social justice, education, environmental, national security, faith-based, and nutrition communities have an opportunity to create powerful shared messaging, and advocacy around the opportunity, the imperative, and the means to transform the United States food system. Transform it. Strengthening connections between the food and health sectors is a natural and necessary step in this direction. Working in closer alignment, these sectors can advance the reality of nutrition security as a core component of health and well-being, central to arresting the trajectory of nutrition-related disease and costs in this country. Similarly, I'm getting tired, I'm sorry. Building stronger connections between the food, health, environmental, and social and racial justice sectors could help drive a shift toward more equitable, sustainable, and healthier diets for all, and a more equitable and sustainable food supply chain. Don't you know they want equitable and sustainable shit? Get on it. Shit. Alignment with other sectors will also be critical to this effort, including the education sector. Yeah, we gotta get the education sector in there, boy. Gotta get that in there. Schools already play a significant role in nutrition access for children and are one of the largest purchasers of food. And the education community knows that nutrition security is core to educational success. Both education and health sectors are uniquely motivated and appear willing to be allies in the fight against nutrition insecurity. The heightened focus of the on food system prompted by COVID-19 and the economic downturn provided a unique chance to pass reform legislation, and advocates have been pushing for decades. Sorry, let me say that again. The heightened focus on the food system prompted by COVID-19 and the economic downturn provided a unique chance to pass reform legislation that advocates have been pushing for decades. Decades they've been trying to do this, and now, perfect opportunity. A pandemic around the world, locking everyone down and resetting the system. Or resetting the table. Or resetting everything. A great reset. Don't you just love this? Looking ahead, COVID-19 has made clear that despite the innovation, entrepreneurship, and dedicated efforts of many players across the supply chain, the overall food system does not promote healthy people, a healthy planet, or an equitable economy. Why do we want an equitable economy? Tell me why. Some people need more food than others because they have more kids. As noted, the deficiencies in the system existed and were recognized by many long before COVID-19, and they will remain afterward with significant implications for our national security, population health, economic prosperity, and our environment, unless we collectively choose to address them. Working together, we have the opportunity and the obligation to transform the U.S. food system to make it more efficient, equitable, healthy, and resilient, both in good times and bad, by shifting to a system that better integrates public, private, and philanthropic solutions. This country can better address its intractable and growing nutrition insecurity by reinvigorating regional systems as part of a better balanced nationwide food system. We can increase the system's sustainability and resilience. And by eliminating racial disparities and delivering fair returns and benefits throughout the food supply chain, we can resolve the system's fundamental inequity. To make these shifts possible, the system needs to acquire and strengthen a set of capabilities that have not been activated system-wide, apply true cost accounting, maximize taxpayer value by making sure public purchasing generates public good, invest in better coordinated emergency response plans, modernize data and technology platforms, unify actors across multiple sectors in a collaborative advocacy movement. While the opportunity to realize this vision has come to us under such tragic circumstances, it has also inspired the kind of passion, commitment, and innovation that gives us hope and needed transformation can and will be accomplished. To do so, stakeholders from across the food system and beyond must come together to drive transformational systems shifts in systems, policies, and practices. We must collectively meet the moment to address immediate need while laying the foundation for the systemic and structural design of a transformed food system. As we move forward together to reset the table of this country's food system, we must continue to learn from the innovative operational solutions being seen all across the country and incorporate those lessons in future policies and programs. We must also listen to and learn from the activism and protests against systemic racism triggered by the killing of George Floyd and apply this knowledge to the transformative work that lies ahead. What the fuck does George Floyd have to do with food? Over the coming months, the Rockerfeller Foundation will engage with leaders in the mainly intersecting fields the food system touches to strengthen efforts to address the challenges and pursue the opportunities described in this paper. We are grateful to and inspired by those in the field who are leading the way and others who are taking interest in improving our food system for the first time. We look forward to hearing your voice in the collaborative and sustained effort needed to reset the table and transform the U.S. food system to be what this country and its people need it to be. Now is the moment. And then it gives us a great list of all of these people that you might want to look into. See what they're like, see if they're part of the World Economic Forum. I'm sure they are. The Rockerfeller Foundation is grateful to the following people who participated in video conference discussions in May and June of 2020. Through exchanges following those discussions or through other collaborations that we drew upon for this paper. Some may differ with aspects of the paper or have stressed other matters of primary focus. All have contributed with the greatest sense of shared purpose at this time of national need. Yep. Good list of a bunch of people that you can look into if you feel so inclined, if you have the time. Couple pages, 3 pages, there we go. And then endnotes with a bunch of different resources, references for you to check out yourself. So I highly recommend. I will be looking at more of this. If I find anything worthwhile, I will share it. But a lot of this is 2019, 2017, and so you know how the world is today. Even being a week late, you're behind. A couple years, you're way behind. So, something I wanted to share with you, not this, the masks thing, this unfortunate news before I go, because unfortunately I don't have time to peruse the news with you today. That took a lot longer than I anticipated. I hope that you glean some knowledge out of that and understand what it is that they're looking for. I mean, equity, sustainability, the keywords. But overall, centralized power. This just happened this week, where 100,000 chickens were killed in a fire at one of the country's top egg producers in Connecticut. This came out January 31st, so this was yesterday. And this is Cron 4. I have no idea about this news station. I just know that there's a fire, and so I wanted to discuss it really quick. Authorities in Connecticut are still investigating the cause of a massive fire at a chicken farm that killed approximately 100,000 egg-laying hens over the weekend. The fire started in a large chicken coop at Hillendale Farms around 1 p.m. Saturday, prompting a response from dozens of firefighting agencies from the area. The Connecticut Department of Agriculture confirmed that approximately 100,000 egg-laying hens died in the blaze. The Hillendale Farms, headquartered in Pennsylvania, is said to be one of the top 5 egg producers in the country. The expected impact on egg prices, however, is believed to be minimal, if it has an impact at all. According to the USDA, as of September 2022, there are more than 372 million egg-laying hens in the United States. I hope it doesn't, because right now egg prices are about $5 here in Michigan for $12 for a dozen. $5 for a dozen of eggs, which is insane, because a year and a half ago, it was 98 cents. 5 times more expensive. And so I hope that the egg prices don't go up, but I don't believe them when they say they won't go up, that it's going to be minimal. It's believed to be minimal, yeah. This is just one of many food processing plants of one kind or another that have burned down in the last 2 years. It's pretty remarkable if you look into it. And I'm going to leave you with this article, 13 food shortages to expect in 2023. And I'm going to finish this with a poem out of this Poems of Gratitude Everyman's Library edition. So, the 13 food shortages to expect in 2023. First, beef. Beef, according to its producers' marketing slogan, is what's for dinner. And that's often true for many, whether it be in the form of hamburgers, a roast, a ribs, or steak. But in 2023, beef is likely to be in short supply, forcing Americans to get their robust protein fix and dietary centerpiece from something other than red meat. Well, it used to be that protein could be getting on the cheap from eggs, but as you just saw, and I'm sure aware in your own state, eggs are fucking expensive. So, not cheap any longer as a source of protein. According to Beef Magazine, the USDA estimates that the average American will consume 5.6% less beef in 2023 than they did in 2022, the steepest decline in consumption in nearly 40 years. Consumers' choice to buy less beef is related to economic concerns such as inflation, lackluster GDP growth, and escalating beef costs, brought on by an ongoing shortage of the meat. Now, we're in 2023. That solution from Rockefeller was in 2020. And things, again, have just gotten worse. So, were they just ignorant? Or are they malevolent? We must ask this out of every policy, out of every crazy thing that happens. Follow the yellow brick road and ask yourself, ignorance or malevolence? According to the Washington Times, a devastating drought in Texas, which is responsible for 14% of the U.S. beef supply, led to a lack of grass feed for cows. Meanwhile, alternative feeds are currently too expensive to be cost effective. See, why? This is the problem. This is a key problem. Why is cost more important than food? Because we care more about money, but the whole system is messed up. That is true, but centralized power is not the way forward. All of this resulted in early culls and slaughter of cows meant to be processed in 2023. I mean, our government should make damn sure we don't have to kill cows without eating them. We don't have to kill chickens without eating them. The fact that it's not cost effective, but people are going to starve because we're not going to just keep the cows until we can, because of money, people are going to starve. It's backwards. All this resulted in early culls and slaughter of cows meant to be processed in 2023. So as ranchers catch up, consumers can expect a nationwide shortage of beef products of every kind. Warning. Warning. Lettuce shortage. Grow your own lettuce. I know a lot of people can't have cows. I can't have cows, but I can grow my own lettuce. Lettuce, that crisp and leafy green that serves as the basis for countless salads and tops numerous sandwiches, was harder to find than usual in the United States in 2022. The reasons are twofold, with weather and some plant disease working in concert to cause significant and successive blows to the lettuce crop in California, where most of American supply chain is grown. Beer shortage. It's not just foods that face scarcity in the months to come, beverages do too. A possible looming shortage of beer 23 isn't necessarily because of the difficulty in growing or obtaining the raw ingredients needed to make the alcoholic beverage. Empty beer shelves might be a problem in the coming months due to the lack of the materials used to carbonate and package the drink. According to WKMG News, the demand and need for aluminum blew up during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic as millions shifted to drinking beer at home instead of at bars or in breweries. Pet adoption rates also drastically rose, and canned pet food companies used up a lot of the available aluminum. With stocks already depleted, China's issued a reduction in aluminum processing to cut down on pollution, reducing the overall global production rate and thus supply of aluminum by as much as 20%. Champagne. According to the European law, real champagne must be grown, fermented, and bottled within 100 miles of the Champagne region of France. Otherwise, it's simply sparkling wine. But the real stuff could be in short supply in 2023. The government in France regulates the French champagne industry, which includes setting annual production limits. Wine Enthusiast reports that demand for the traditionally celebratory beverage dropped 18% in 2020, likely linked to the bleak state of affairs caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the widespread lockdowns experienced around the world. That year, the CIVC called for a 25% reduction in champagne production. But then 2021 rolled around and people started buying a lot more champagne. That increase in demand outpaced the supply, in part due to the limits and because it takes at least 15 months to make a proper bottle. There you go. Oranges. According to the Florida Department of Citrus, that state is one of the world's most prolific regions of growing oranges and producing orange juice. The Florida climate usually provides ideal citrus conditions, including near tropical temperatures, plenty of rain and sun, and sandy soil. But when that weather gets even a little bit out of whack, it can lead to catastrophic effects on Florida's orange crop, a situation playing out in 2023. In 2022, Hurricane Ian and Tropical Storm Nicole brought high winds and torrential rains, destroying the Florida's orange crop. They always have hurricanes. That followed an epidemic of citrus greening. I know it's hurricane, by the way. I lived down south for a while, and some people said hurricane. I'm not making fun. It is what it is. I love them, and I love you. While oranges are still hitting produce departments in American grocery stores from California and Brazil, where weather has also led to a production decline, the issues in Florida are the biggest cause of the shortage. In October 2022 to September 2023 season, Florida farmers are expected to produce 20 million boxes of the fruit, 51% less than the previous season. Holy shit. 51% less, y'all. That makes for the biggest drop since 1913. Whoo! No good. Now, you could say an orange is a luxury product, but I am a millennial in America, and I'm used to having oranges, and I like them a lot. And so I hope we can get it under control. But cooking oil. Certain category of commercial agriculture called oilseed crops, which collectively make up the raw materials used to make cooking oils. Among oilseed crops are soybeans, sunflowers, peanuts, rapeseeds, and canola. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which are processed into millions of bottles of fatty plant oil used to cook our food. The vast majority of oilseed crops are harvested in Russia and Ukraine. Well, there you go. Reported that more than 70% of the world's sunflower seed and sunflower oil alone in 2022 originated in those two countries, which, as of 2022 and into 2023, are at war with one another. With those countries preoccupied by the military conflict, Time reports that exports will be way down, leading to shortages of cooking oil and higher prices for what remain available. Of course, supply and demand. Butter. Refrigerated butter shelves in the supermarkets aren't suddenly going to turn empty. The United States has been enduring some supply and cost issues with butter since the last few months of 2022. According to the Consumer Price Index, inflation on consumer goods led to a 9.1% average price hike in 2022, with food costs rising more than 12%. While a range of issues is responsible for this economic crisis in general, butter experienced one of the steepest price upticks, specifically due to the lengthy labor shortage in the dairy farm sector and the subsequent reduction in milk production. Less work means less milk, which in turn means a lot less butter. Yeah, why don't we turn all that milk into butter? Corn. Corn is the single most lucrative cash crop in the United States. The production, distribution, and sale of corn contributed $71 billion to the American economy in 2021. Whether it's used to make oil, high fructose corn syrup, canned, or sold fresh off the cob, corn is an extreme versatile and important product. The industry and its regulators keep a close watch on how much corn is produced, and in 2022, farmers were set to plant 89 million acres of crop, about 4% less than they had in 2021. That means corn farms were set to produce 3.7 million fewer acres of the cash crop, making for a significant dent in the overall corn supply. This could very well and logically mean a dearth of corn and corn-based products on the store shelves in 2023, along with higher prices. Why don't we just stop exporting? I know it sounds terrible, but other countries are doing it already. Stop exporting your important crop that you need for your own people. Eggs. Number 9, eggs. No surprise with everything that's gone down with the culling, the genocide of millions of chickens. It's no surprise that we're going to have an egg shortage. But people need to just have backyard chickens. One could argue that eggs are literally the glue of the American diet. They're a binder and an ingredient in a vast variety of baked goods, as well as protein-rich breakfast and brunch staple, be they scrambled, fried, poached, or made into an omelet. Unfortunately, a nationwide egg shortage is set to interrupt breakfast plans for millions in 2023. The severe lack of eggs expected in 2023 is a direct result of one of the biggest avian flu outbreaks in American history in 2022. As reported by the Centers of Disease Control, by the end of that year, bird flu led to the deaths of more than 49 million birds. Where's PETA? 49 million birds were genocided, were killed without being transferred into energy for us, without us eating it. They were just fucking killed. Burned. Incinerated. However they do it, most of them are incinerated, but I'm sure there are other ways of killing these chickens. It's deplorable. It's sad. And that's, a lot of them, it's just one chicken supposedly tested positive from a PCR test, which if you do any research into the PCR test, you'd know. The person who created it said it's not to be used for what they're using it for because you can get any result you want. So if they're getting the result that, oh, one chicken in your huge 1,000,000 chicken farm has the avian flu, now you have to kill all your damn chickens. It's straight up evil. I'm sorry. I feel terrible for those chickens. And I love chicken. I love to eat them, but at least they're being their energy is becoming my energy, sustaining me, not just being killed for no reason. Either directly from the virus itself or from culling by farmers after confirmed exposure to the disease. The disease. Sorry. Yes, confirmed exposure. They might not even have the fucking disease. It's absolutely terrible. And people are going to starve. We are going to starve. I'm paying right now, I pay $60 for eggs. You know, every couple weeks, because I live out in the boondocks, so I don't go very often. But when I do go, I have to spend 5 times more on eggs. It's a staple in our diet. And it should be cheap. Since eggs come from chickens, the lack of millions of producers significantly affects the supply, as do pre-existing supply chain issues brought on by the pandemic. Tomatoes. I won't have a shortage. I grow tomatoes like a champ. You should grow your own too. I mean, they're probably the easiest. So far, I've had the most success. Last 3 years I've had a garden. Tomatoes always work. So grow your own, can them bitches. It's highly likely that produce in the average American kitchen originated in California. In 2021, according to the Department of Food and Agriculture, a third of the nation's vegetables and 75% of its fruits and nuts came from the Golden State. By and large, California offers wonderful weather and growing conditions, not wealth anymore, growing conditions for crops. But if there's a drought, that can create cataclysmic effects on the food supply. All right, well, there you go. Bread. The Russian invasion of Ukraine and subsequent ongoing war has one of the biggest global news stories of 2022. It's still waging in 2023. It's going to go to 2025. If the Ukrainian bitch that was at the World Economic Forum is to be believed, she had a Freudian slip and said the end of 2025, and I believe her. Then she switched and said the end of 2022, but here we are in 2023, and it's just beginning. We're talking about sending tanks. Getting sidetracked. Sorry. Food shortages. According to the Brookings Institution, about 20% of the world's cereal grain production, namely wheat, comes from those countries. So, bread shortage. Olive oil. It can take many months to meet demand for globally popular foods that are grown on a large scale in a handful of regions. That's why it became evident as early as the summer of 2022 that an olive oil shortage was in the cards for 2023. The issue was foreshadowed in 2010 when a tree-blighting bacteria of Latin America called Xylella surfaced and made its way to the region of Italy, where 12% of the world's olive oil supply is produced. By 2021, this had infected a solid third of the state's 60 million olive trees, making the fruit unusable before completely killing the tree itself. The bacteria is the cause of 50 to 70% of olive oil production reduction, since it took hold, and it's a problem that is, in all likelihood, will last well beyond 2023. Yeah, I'm sure. This year, according to Bloomberg, worldwide olive production has dropped 11%. Infant formula. You should be breastfeeding anyway. Baby formula is a modern scientific marvel. It is poison for your child. A synthetic recreation of natural. A synthetic recreation. How could it ever be better than what nature provides? It's a copy. A copy is never as good as the original. Nutritionally dense breast milk, and it's what's causing obesity, by the way. Right off the rip, kids are fat because they're on baby formula and the baby food is filled with junk. Anyway, February, Abbott, the U.S. largest infant formula manufacturer, temporarily halted production and issued a massive recall when they discovered bacteria at a facility. I'm pretty sure this is a Michigan facility, actually. Let me look really quick. Yep, right here. Abbott at one of the largest facilities in Michigan. after bacteria was found at the site. It took forever for the FDA to close it down and then to open it back up, causing all kinds of alternative, well, more problems. Not alternative, just compiled the problems. Don't have time to get into it, but I will in the future. If you don't know about it and want to know about it, let me know in the comments down below. You can do some research yourself if you feel so inclined, but the factory in question is in Fremont, which is not far away, and it definitely contributed to the shortage. And it's open now, though, if I'm not mistaken, but of course, backlog and all that. By May 2022, a full-on shortage was in effect. More than 40% of the usual stock was unavailable. So there you have it, 13 things that are going to be in short supply sometime this year, if not the entire year, unfortunately. So if you have any means to grow your own food or get backyard chickens, I highly recommend. We have a reset of the table happening, and you do not want to rely on your government for food. You don't want to rely on your government for anything, but since food is necessary for life, you don't want to rely on them for it. So somehow figure out how to become self-reliant. Even buying a book on foraging if you live near woods. I know it sounds drastic, but at least eating some plants that you can find in your local forests would help you sustain if you had to. Again, I know that sounds alarmist, but you need to understand what's happening, and you need to be aware that it's possible that you could have a shortage of food if you rely on the government. One more thing before I go. Very, very short poem from William Blake called Eternity. Again, I'll show you one more time. There's this book. This is the Everyman's Library Pocket Poet edition. I love it. It's my first one. It's adorable, and it gives you a general idea. If you want to explore poetry, you can look at several different authors. That's what I'm trying to say. You can explore poets if you don't know what you like, which is where I'm at. I don't know what I like, but I like William Blake's poem right here. He who binds to himself a joy does the winged life destroy. He who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. Enjoy right now. Enjoy this moment while you have it. It's the only thing that really exists. The past is gone. The future hasn't come. It's not real. What is real is right now. I love you. Be grateful for what you have, and work hard for what you want. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Look out for my next video.